If you thought a porn star on the stand was bad, wait till next week when full-on felon Michael Cohen lets loose. Donald Trump wrapping up the 15th day of his hush money trial by ripping his horrible gag order.
Everybody can say whatever they want. They can say whatever they want, but I'm not allowed to say anything about anybody. If anything's mentioned against certain people, and you know who they are, certain people, anything's even mentioned, he wants to put me in jail. And that could happen one day, and I'd be very proud to go to jail for our Constitution. They have had more than 20 prosecutors sitting there over the fact that somebody paid a lawyer, and in paying the lawyer, so it was a legal expense, that somebody happened to be me. This is what the case is about.
Next on the docket, it's the convicted liar turned TikTok influencer Michael Cohen, who's set to testify Monday. While Trump's lips are forced shut, the judge is going easy on Cohen, asking prosecutors to tell the loudmouth to pipe down. Problem is, it's a little too late for that.
Nope. I won't be able to see you without him.
Every night, defense and the prosecution is watching your live and storing it. Do you ever think about just saying,
I don't care. There's nothing that I say. That whatever they want to ask me, they could ask me.
While key witnesses have been teeing off on Trump with some trash talk, the liberal media is salivating over the thought of gagging anyone who simply breathes in Trump's inner circle.
We know that Donald Trump is under a gag order, and yet you have someone close to him who would like to be potentially his vice presidential running mate saying the judge's daughter is a political operative who raises money for Democrat. And is there anything Judge Merchan can or should do about people who are close to Donald Trump saying things that maybe he can't?
I don't think so, Chris.
Okay. So, Judge, you were back in court today. Tell us about it.
Well, okay, there's so much that went through my... Let me tell you something. I'm sitting in that courtroom, and I'm looking at the judge, a guy who's wearing a robe, literally saying to the prosecutor, Mr. Prosecutor, could you tell Michael Cohen that I asked you to tell him not to talk? Talking about a spineless wonder. All right. The judge does not want to gag Michael Cohen. He refuses to because he's part of this whole conspiracy to convict Trump. The truth is, if you're going to gag Donald Trump, which you don't have a right to do in this case, you've got to gag Michael Cohen. Everybody knows that. The ordinary American out there knows it. But when he turned into such a wuss, he said, can you tell him that I'm asking you to tell him, well, are you stupid? Do you not know you're a judge? Not only that, but Alvin Bragg comes in the courtroom. He comes in and he squeezes in a bench next to his bodyguard. The two of them are sitting there. And I'm saying to myself, what the hell are you doing in this courtroom? This is an expired misdemeanor that we don't even know is true. And what you're doing is you're coming in here to make sure that that jury knows this case is important to Manhattan. While there are people in jail who've been sitting in jail for years on violent felonies, murders, rapes, violent felonies, who can't get to trial because of COVID. But you got to try Donald Trump. You got to pull him out real early and give him to a judge who has already established his hatred for Donald Trump. Now, let me tell you more. Today was all about technical stuff, laying a foundation so they could get the tweets in, so they could get the text messages in between Stormy Daniels' assistant and Dylan Howard for AMI, American Media, okay? At the end of it, did Donald Trump have anything to do with this? No. We have been watching for days a nut job who speaks to dead people, who thinks she lives in a haunted house, who wants to take up reading tarot cards, who wants to make America horny again. And you want to make this woman a main witness when she's prejudicial per se. Lawyers know what I mean by that. Now we're getting a serial liar, as a federal judge called him, a serial perjurer, a whole case about whether or not payments were made to reimburse this serial liar for what? Nobody can tell us what they're for. And then we had Madeleine Westerhout. She said the checks would come from Manhattan. He'd barely look at them. He'd just sign them, and then they'd go back. And so there was he wasn't examining this stuff. She said he was a multitasker. Donald Trump would be on the phone. He'd be signing checks. He'd be talking to people. He's signing checks. You can't even show if he signed the check that he knew what he was signing, other than Rona sent it to him. And Rona had no knowledge of the agreement, allegedly, between the woman who lies for a living, lays for a living, and lies for a living. Well,
Wow, I like post-courtroom Judge Jeanine. Shot out of a cannon. Kennedy, your thoughts on today?
No, Judge Jeanine is absolutely fired up, and it just goes to show you how politically charged and emotionally charged this case is. And if this were such a big deal, why are we trying it 8 years later? And, you know, it made me wonder, if that's the case, are Alvin Bragg and, you know, Matthew Colgarten or whatever. Colangelo. Are they going to collude in 8 years to put Hunter Biden on the stand? I think we have about as much chance of seeing that as we do Miss Daniels regrowing her cherry and putting it in her Shirley Temple.
Oh! Wow. I'm thirsty all of a sudden, Greg.
This is Friday.
It is Friday, and it hasn't even started yet. I love how the media demands that we treat the content of this trial with utmost seriousness. No, you treat it with the seriousness it deserves, which is none, right? This is a trial where, as you say, the actual charge isn't being discussed, where instead you have a porn star babble about a tryst that took place years ago, one that, by the way, is legal, and then you tell us you need to take this crap seriously. This would not pass muster on People's Court. Judge Wapner and his bailiff Rusty would have this dismissed before Rusty Burrell. They would dismiss it before Doug Llewellyn gets his hair styled. I'll tell you what I do take seriously: the intent of the trial and the ability of the government to make this happen. This is not a legitimate law. It's quote, even by their standards, unprecedented. This is an attempt to use their phrase, steal democracy. And they're trying to camouflage their lack of real substance with a porn star sex chat that the media gobbles up like cheap Ritalin. It is ironic that it must be ironic to Stormy, you know, that Trump's facing all these gag orders, given that was always part of her job description.
It really is Friday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good to be back
Yes,
around the table.
good to have you.
Judge, I was interested. One question before I have my little take on it. Did you think we have had a position around the table, and those of us, I think the country, if you look at some of the polling, that Mr. Trump is winning in the trial? Put aside the things that you were talking about, the substance of it, because whether you think he should be charged or not be charged, whether the case should have been brought or not, whether Alvin Bragg sat where he sat in the courtroom, did you think that Mr. Trump had a good day legally, if you were just trying to assess this from a legal standpoint?
I think he had a good day legally today and yesterday when I was there. The issue is whether or not the jury is. See, I think he had a good day legally because I know it's not probative, it's not relevant.
But looking at the jury, you've been in a lot of courtrooms, you've seen a lot of juries.
I've read a lot of juries, right, and so that was my expertise. Unless you don't think I could try a case, but in any event,
that's what I'm asking, because that's still some points I want to make.
That jury's sitting there; they're tired. They are tired of hearing about business records and laying the foundation. So it caught them on a day that was relatively boring. But I don't think they have any idea why they're there, other than to be told Donald Trump's a bad guy, and that's what worries me.
So that was my thing. A couple observations. First, President Trump is a fighter. Everyone knows that, and I think he resists any efforts to restrict himself, whether it be in business, politics, and he certainly is demonstrating that in the court. My objection to the way he is behaving in the court is that there are rules in the court. I tried to explain a little bit last week. I think President Trump may have not done any of the things that they are suggesting that he did in the courtroom. And I think litigating that in the courtroom is more appropriate, number one. Number two, I guess if you think about it politically, the question becomes, is this having any impact on the really small group of voters in the 5 or 6 states that will make or decide this election, as that same group decides just about every presidential election? And I don't know the effect of that. But the real issue, and the real issue for the prosecution, is Mr. Cohen. Next week he will come to this courtroom. He has said things. I've been curious, Judge, why Judge Merchan has not asked him to refrain or to restrict some of his language. But then again, he's a witness. I would think if I were a defense team lawyer, and you had witnesses like this coming before who were the prosecution's witnesses, this is a dream witness group here, because you can cross-examine the daylights out of these people and undermine their credibility. And if Mr. Cohen has, and I don't know him, but if he has the kinds of challenges that has been suggested, and the press reporting of him certainly suggests, as a defense lawyer, a real defense lawyer, you can't wait to cross-examine this guy because you're going to poke holes. So I think the next 3 days in the courtroom, I don't know what the days are they're going to be in court, will be some of the most interesting and I think probably the most dispositive for this case.
I think what will be dispositive is the judge's charge, because I don't think the jury knows what they're focusing on.
No,
Not yet.
This part of the trial, I would agree. We wait to see that, and then that's obviously an appealable thing. I mean, the judge does not give the right charge.
But the appeal won't happen before the election. That's the problem.
But what I'm saying for the case, Mr. Cohen's testimony next week, this will be the most pivotal and most important.
And they're
thing.
done next week, by the way.
And that is why.
That's what they're
and
saying.
that is why Fox is going to be sending Greg Gutfeld to be our representative in the court.
You know why?
Next week.
Because I don't know what the word dispositive means.
Potty.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.